I think that the bicycle industry, especially the big brands, have really expanded that diligence. They've really gone out of their way to learn more about these new technologies because they can apply them, and they know that the average cyclist is going to have a more enjoyable time if they have a highly technologically advanced product that really can give them the type of comfort and fun that they've been looking for. They've expanded these electrical engineering departments. They've learned a lot about batteries and the safety and the needs that have to happen. But still, there's bicycles that have been on the market, maybe even just a couple years ago, that weren't privy to some of these new regulations and standards, and it wasn't as necessary possibly to have to test to get these batteries to a point that they would be at a safe level for people to use comfortably. The issue too is that there's a lot of product coming in to the country from people who might be smaller manufacturers. They may not have such deep resources internally in their manufacturing departments. They might not manufacture at all. It might just be a branding company. They're bringing in one or two models. It's very easy for them to come into the country. They might not be alerted to any of these regulations until they've already brought the product in and they're trying to sell it to a retailer, or they've already gotten it on the water. And that's a problem. And this is what we need to do to educate more the industry as a whole. To your point about 2271 in particular, I mean, obviously you all can probably talk about the intimacies, but there's a tremendous amount of tests that the batteries themselves have to go through in order to be considered safe to conform to one of these standards that has been a longstanding standard for lithium-ion batteries. Now they're being applied to a product like a bicycle in a different way than they were usually maybe originally designed. There's power cells that are within them that have to, meet these certain requirements. So I'll give you some of the examples. There's tests of water immersion. There's tests of splashing water. There's vibration tests. There's a locked rotor motor test on the UL2849 test. There's a drop test for the batteries. There's a shock test. These types of tests that the battery pack itself and the cells have to go through, if they pass these tests, in essence, when they're put together, the likelihood of them to be much more safe and to mitigate any danger is much greater. The batteries that may be coming into the country without going through that, we don't know if they are able to meet these. It's possible, but many times when you go through this process, there's no documentation on these individual tests that they've ever been done, and then when you start to go through the process, they don't.
To expand a little on things that each of the other panelists said is, as Dejan said, with respect to the manufacturing and sourcing and the supply chain, the understanding collectively of what these standards are, why they're important, and the fact that a consumer needs to know that they are buying something that meets a certain safety standard. And then to the point of the South Florida shop owner not understanding, that UL listing is not for the battery. It is not for the bike. It is for the system. And if you start to tinker with things in that system, it's not listed anymore. So if some well-intended but misinformed tinkerer takes that battery apart and starts to swap out 18650s, individual cells that are inside it, or uses a different charging configuration. I saw an article about, hey, look at this guy is charging a Z-bike and an EV charger. Like, I mean, you can, yep, you can, but it's certainly not met any of the industry standard safety systems. So, understanding from a procurement standpoint, and then also elevating the overall understanding of here's why you need to buy something that meets these safety standards.
I just want to make sure that you understand that UL 2849 is for electric system, for e-bikes and e-bikes itself. It's not for a battery. This standard requires that a batteries are certified to a multitude of standards. The 4 standards in option: 2580 for electric vehicles, 2271 light electric vehicles, 62133, which is the standard for consumer batteries, plus additional tests from the one of the 2 above standards. So their specific battery standard, UL 2849, is electric system for e-bikes and e-bikes alone.
But Dan, it needs to be pointed out. Sure. It needs to be pointed out that these are voluntary standards. They're not required.
Absolutely.
There's no requirement to these at this time, but we anticipate that that's going to end.
So people for bikes have reached out to CPSC to actually lobby that e-bikes are included in the Code of Federal Regulation. Unfortunately, it takes the act of Congress to actually include e-bikes. So the problem that we have is that what happened with hoverboards is that they included them and they required the testing. But what caused that? Tremendous number of fires, unfortunately, accident. We don't want that to happen. So we are waiting for CPSC to act up. NBDA is working on it as well. Hopefully on the May 24th, they'll have news for us, tell us what's going on. But we are actively trying. Google is just a testing and certification company. We can't just go in and lobby the Congress or the CPSC, but we are trying. We know that, for example, New York City Fire Department has revised the code. I believe it will be published later this year that will require a listing of e-bikes for sale in New York City. So that's going to be published later this year. So that, if New York does that, that will snowball across the country. Do your diligence. Design your products to meet existing product safety standards. Educate your dealers, educate the consumers. And most important, as Mike said, you have to educate the dealers. Select components from reputable manufacturers. If you are buying systems that are already pre-certified, we have Bosch systems that are pre-certified, and used by various manufacturers. Be wary of something that's cheap. If it sounds too good to be true, it might not be good for you. Be careful. Do your diligence. I know that various manufacturers, Track, Specialized, Giants, they're all, you guys have really big brands to protect. Somebody was mentioning earlier that lower quality e-bikes coming from overseas. I won't call them lower quality. I'll call them cheap. There are bikes on sale right now on Amazon for $299. I know for a fact you cannot manufacture a battery for $299. Nonetheless, the whole bike. So do your diligence. Select your components very carefully.
And buy batteries that have been tested and certified.
That implies that. Select your components very carefully. Select components that meet existing standards for your intended market.
So there is an obligation when you start to bring a new thing into your working environment that you're educated on what you're doing and what the risks are. The Call to Recycle can help with this, but there are a lot of organizations that can help understand regulatory and practical safety compliance, particularly as it pertains to batteries. But we're not in a world where we can just be smart about bikes anymore. We've got to be smart about batteries also.
There's consumers out there who are not messing with the product at all, but they're messing with the software in the product to do things that maybe it wasn't initially designed to do. And the controllers that are on the systems, the boards that are inside those systems, the battery management system, were not designed to run the bike at those speeds over that period of time. And you're putting more strain on the battery and the ultimate system, and those could be causes for problems later that we're not even aware of. The other point that I would make is just the aftermarket purchase of battery packs and chargers and controllers and everything else in the system that's available. You might think, hey, my battery pack's not charging so well, so I'm going to get a different one. And I found one for $75 less from a different supplier that happens to have 3 pins and it'll fit perfectly into the Gradle. I'm going to use it. But that system wasn't designed to run with that battery management system that's inside that pack. So it may charge, it may discharge just fine. It may give you the power. It might not give you the life that you had before, but you might not think about that. But then over time, you're having another problem. And what we don't want to have is the fire problem. We don't want to have that risk to our consumers. And ultimately, I would quote Melinda. I think you said it earlier that the e-bike is life-changing. We just want it to change in a positive way, right? We don't want it to change the other way.
Tell them not to tinker with the battery systems and to charge them plugged directly into the wall. Same things that dealers need to know. It's, and then as you said, right, in general, batteries are best when they are charged with somebody around.
Only use chargers that came with your device. Do not use chargers, aftermarket chargers. That implies, by the way, for your cell phones as well. Use only certified chargers that came with your devices. That is number one cause.